Hey, you impostor syndrome. We will beat the hell out of you in this episode. Are you ready? Rawr! Yeah, yeah. Definitely, this was one of those weird intros. Definitely. But we still gonna beat the hell out of the imposter syndrome. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So if you are seeing me in YouTube, so you are seeing what I am doing in the camera. I am doing a little bit of shadowing boxing because we are preparing, my friend. We are preparing for combat. We are preparing for war in this episode. We are preparing for I am looking for the exact word. We are preparing for total annihilation. I don't know if that word even exists in English. Let me see. I'm looking for a specific word right here. What? Annihilation? Yeah, maybe annihilation. Ah, man. Anyways, we are aiming to the truth today because what we are gonna be beating the hell out of it today is something that may be in your life and you don't even know it. And the sad thing is that imposter syndrome maybe is the thing that is blocking all your potential, is blocking all that you can give to society, is blocking all your art, is blocking your essence, is blocking your gratitude, is blocking your love, and you may don't even know it. So that's why today is so important, and that's why today we are preparing for war. We are preparing for eliminating, removing, extirpating forever the imposter syndrome. So, welcome to the episode 503. My name is Dr. Derek Israel, and this is the Mastermind Podcast Challenge Season 2, in which we come every day, Monday through Friday, with a new subject on personal development and a new and a specific challenge for you to actualize a new truth in your life. So, if you want to join this challenge, just subscribe to all my stations, all my platforms. Everything is in the description below. You can follow this material for further study. And also, I want to recommend you to consider joining our Telegram group. It's an exclusive community that we are forming just to support each other in this challenge. It will be a temporary chat. Uh, is only will be active during these times of the live challenge. So if you're watching these episodes today at 2022, hey, come and join us in our group and let's chat there and work together totally free there. So let's go right in with the subject of today. I'm very excited about this subject. I have been planning this subject for a whole year now and working with this idea, working through this phenomena in my own life. And now I feel that I haven't destroyed completely the imposter syndrome. I don't think that that is really the ideal. When I was telling that we are gonna destroy or eliminate, remove it, it was just in a kind of in a fun way. I was trying to put a little bit of humor here in this podcast, but really we never eradicate it. We just learn how to live with it and how to win the war most of the time. That is the expectation. So let's go right into it. What is the imposter syndrome? Well, if you don't know what is, after this podcast, you can always, you do your own research, and you definitely should do that. There's a lot of YouTube videos about it, a lot of Google articles, and also a lot of books about it. So this is a very common term that is uh, being discussed in media, in universities, in culture science 1970s. It was basically constructed from psychologists uh, that basically worked with this term back in the 1970s. So it's an old term. Nevertheless, it's not a very popular yet, although I believe it will be getting more popular and popular in this generation to come. In these generations to come. So what it is it? Well, it's basically a syndrome, right? It's not a clinical syndrome, though. It is not something that you will find in the DCM or in some of the medical books for diagnosing clinical pathologies. It is not a clinical pathology, but it's very recognized by psychiatrists, medics, psychologists, and so forth, coaches, and so forth. So basically, it's this syndrome, this phenomenon in which you feel that you are an imposter. You feel that whatever you want to do, you are faking your way through that thing, and that you really do not have the skills necessary to achieve success in that certain area, and you doubt systematically about yourself, and you think that all your achievements are based on luck instead of hard work. In social psychology, we call that the fundamental error, or error of attribution, or attribution error, in which we tend to think uh, sometimes incorrectly about circumstances and the effects or the causes that created those circumstances. So when we are talking about the imposter syndrome, we tend to believe that other people, yes, they have the credentials so they can do a thing, but we never have those. We always are doubting our own credentials. And maybe you have a master degree, or maybe you have a bachelor, or maybe you have a certification, you have a license, maybe you have everything external to validate your performance, to validate your self confidence, your self efficacy in doing the thing. But either way, you still feel doubtful inside. You still feel nervous, anxious inside because you think that you are fake. You have that self limiting belief. And notice, this is a hell of a self limiting belief that is always telling you that you are not enough, that you are not ready enough, that you don't have all the skills yet, that you don't have all the expertise yet, all the knowledge yet, all the information yet, and therefore you are not worthy of what you want. And this syndrome can be applied to specific situations. Like, for example, maybe you want to create a social media empire. Maybe you want to be out there in the metaverse, be out there in the virtual reality, be out there in the digital spheres, creating content. And in for that specific task, you feel this syndrome. It may be like that, like syndrome specific for a task, or it may be more generalized in your life. Like for everything that you will do, you doubt yourself. You think that you are an imposter, and you think that people soon will realize, people soon will discover that you are fake and that you are an imposter, and therefore you procrastinate whatever you need to do. You procrastinate starting your own brand in social media. You procrastinate doing your first video. You procrastinate shooting your first podcast because, hey, at the end of the day, you are just an imposter, right? At the end of the day, you are fake as hell, right? That is what the imposter syndrome is telling you. And then you feel depressed and anxious and demoralized and without hope and nihilist, nihilist and pessimistic. You see, this is the trap of the imposter syndrome. You feel that you are an imposter even when you are not. You feel that you are wearing a mask, that you are putting on a show, even when you are not, even when you are the person that is more prepared, even when you have all the talents, even when you have all the skills or the technical skills. But hey, at the end of the day, this is a psychological, systematic thing that is very internalized in your own self. So, what is the cause? What is the root of imposter syndromes? Well, the root of the imposter syndrome always is part of the process of internalization. Internalization is how you put innerly your own experience and how you integrate them. So if you fail to integrate your success, if you fail to integrate your past achievements, this may be a cause for the imposter syndrome. Because you can have all the success in the world. You can be rich, you can be a doctor, you can be loved, you can be the president of X on or G corporation or Y corporation. Um, you can be whatever. But this is something about internalization. This is something about your psychology. It's not what you have outside of you. That doesn't matter too much. If you fail to internalize your past success, if you fail to internalize your victories, but you internalized very well your failures, the moments in your life when you didn't too well, because you are human, and guess what, you don't always gonna do perfect. But if you did internalize that, well, that may be coloring all your further perspective, and that may be nurturing your imposter syndrome. So much what cause this syndrome is your individual psychology. For example, trauma can definitely impact the imposter syndrome. Maybe you suffer trauma, in school by bullying, or maybe a violent trauma, like a fighting or a beating or sexual trauma, those things can definitely affect your identity. And when your identity is damaged, a lot of your psychological systems will be damaged, because identity at the end of the day is like the substance of your whole organization as a human being. So if your identity is broken, sometimes, not always, because identity have multiple dimensions and it's a dynamic thing, it's not a fixed thing. It's an open system. It is open to change, right? And you can always heal. You can always go to meditation and to a lot of different techniques that I will be discussing in the end of this episode to heal. But yeah, trauma can be a thing here in the imposter syndrome. Also, perfectionism can be a thing, and that is more like a psychological trait or a personality trait. If you are always looking to, for things to be perfect, that can cause imposter syndrome, because hey, at the end of the day, what is perfect? What is perfect? I spend 30 seconds in the first parts of this episode looking for a word that I didn't know how to say. And although that was not the best thing for a podcaster to do, because at the end of the day, this is a talk show and you need to talk fast if you don't want people skipping the episode, right? But I am not perfect. I am working with my English. This is my second language. I don't know every word in the vocabulary, definitely. So I was looking for this specific word and I knew that I was not perfect, so I did it. If I was extreme perfectionist, I may delete this podcast and start again, because I didn't have a specific word right in my brain. I spent 20 seconds looking for that word, and that is not acceptable. So because I am a perfectionist, I need now to delete this podcast. This can never, you know, come to the light. No one can know that my English is not perfect, because they will find out that I am not perfect, right? That is the voice, that is the rationale of the imposter syndrome. And that is just a quick example of how perfectionism can impact this type of work. So be thinking, are you a perfectionist? Do you have a little bit of your imposter syndrome? It is more generalized for you, or is more like task specific for you, for certain tasks only. So just be thinking those things as we move on. Also, what we can call the expertise bias is another cause or root of the imposter syndrome. And that is always thinking that you do not have the enough information yet to launch the product, to conduct the solution, or to do the thing. Because, hey, at the end of the day, when the hell we have all the necessary information for a thing? I was listening to an author. His name is Ryan Holiday. He's a heck of an author. He has some books like Ego is the Enemy, The Perennial Seller, Obstacle is the Way, Trust Me, I'm Lying. Um, I think the other one is called Fortune. No, I don't know. I know the new one. I don't remember. It's something about being brave. Is the new one. So yes, Google Ryan Holiday and definitely buy one of his books. This guy is amazing, and he always tell that after he published his book, for example, so he published a book about Stoicism, this philosophy, and after he publish that book, always someone writes an email or go to a conference when he's doing a conference or something, and always someone give him a book that he didn't read before, that that book was not part of his initial research to write his own book, but that book always contain essential information to add to his existing book. And he's always ask himself, why the hell I didn't read this book before? And he gets sometimes mad because he didn't read that book before. But how that book will found Ryan Holiday if was not because he already published a work in that subject. It is the fact that he already was involved in that subject that opened the possibilities, opened the windows for new information to come to him. So we never have all the information until we expose our material. And then people can give us feedback about our material. And then people can notice certain intellectual gaps, maybe, and they may know a reference that you don't know, and they can refer that reference for you, and you can solidify better your work with more actualized information. But it was only after you exposed your material. If you never exposed your material because you have this imposter syndrome telling you, hey, you don't have all the information yet, well, you will never have all the information because you need to expose to have feedback. You see how this vicious cycle goes? This is pretty bad. And this may be a problem that you have in your life. You will never have all the information, folk. You need to do it without all the information. And during your way, you will acquire definitely that information. So be open. Don't fall into this trap. But also, these individuals' insecurities like trauma, perfectionism, expertise bias, these are more like psychological. But imposter syndrome can also be applied socially and cultivated socially and facilitated socially by culture, by society, by media, by communication, by politics, by the government, by the values, by your family, by your school, by your institutions, by the church. All of these social based institutions can influence, sometimes unconsciously. I am not saying that this is a conspiration. How do you say that? Conspiration? Conspiration is the word. Theories. Let me search. I am not perfect. Conspiracy. That is the right word. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is just something that happens sometimes unconsciously. So, for example, in dysfunctional families, very authoritative fathers or mothers can create this type of syndrome. Families that don't let their son or their daughter to actually become independent can create this syndrome. Families that doesn't let the children explore, have initiative, participate in leadership kind of environments and pressures can develop this syndrome, because at the end of the day, what is the type of self-image that this kid will build if he's living in a family that does everything for him. He will believe that he's one, either not capable of doing the thing, which will cause probably the imposter syndrome when he's an adult, or two, he will think that he deserves everything, and he probably will be a narcissistic, delusional kind of individual that probably a lot of will create a lot of suffering, not only in his own life, but in the life of others if that person, do not heal deeply his shadow or her shadow. So family is very important. So if you are creating your own family, definitely you have sons, definitely you should be studying imposter syndrome, how to not incentivize this in your own family. Very important. Also, in corporations, this can be incentivized or promoted systematically. Like, for example, racism. When this concept or phenomena was first studied, it was noticed that this is very common in women as part of the sexism. And it's very common also in women of color or black women, or also immigrants like Asian living in the United States, or Hispanic as myself living in the United States, stuff like that. Like people that are considered minorities, minor communities. This type of people may suffer of imposter syndrome just only not due to the family, not to psychological rooted problems, but in this case, due to systemic and social structures that promote this type of syndrome. Like, for example, if you are in a school and you are a white teacher and you have 19 white students, and you are in, I don't know, maybe in New York, and you have only one black student, and you as a white teacher, you may not know it, but you are more focused on your white students. And when you ask the questions in the classroom, you always go with the white students first. And sometimes you forget about the black kid that is there, not on purpose, but sometimes unconsciously, or sometimes on purpose. How do you think that that will impact that black dude that is there socially? It will impact him maybe forever. He will think that he's awkward. He will think that he do not belong. He will think that he's not good enough. And that maybe that's why my teacher doesn't care about my opinions. And then when that same guy go to college, study engineering, engineer, he become an engineer, and then he's on NASA working on some projects, engineering projects, he will be thinking every time that he needs to do a new task, a new job, he will be thinking, I am fake. Oh my gosh, they will find out. I don't have all the skills. I have been navigating navigating my environment with a lot of luck, but my luck is about to finish. They will know that I am not so good as I appear to be, and blah 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 blah. All the imposter syndrome will kick in, and this engineer working on NASA that was a black kid in a school that was not noticed before, was not acknowledged as a thinker, as a philosopher, as a human being with unlimited potential, probably will compromise his career due to this. But notice how this can happen with women, with every minority, not only in schools, but also in government institutions, like who the government give aid. help, economic help, or positions in works, in jobs, how this can happen in the church, how this can happen in the media. For example, I was reading that um, a lot of people that have mental health problems, real mental health problems, sometimes feel that they don't, sometimes feel the imposter syndrome, thinking maybe I don't have, maybe I'm faking this mental health problem because I am not seeing that is that extreme in comparison to the thing that are shown in media. For example, the media, the television, the radio is showing you that people with schizophrenia are criminals, killers, murderers, serial killers, people that are attacking random people in a mall or doing a school shooting, and all of these negative bias that the media is showing you every day in your Instagram, in your radio, whatever, and you may be diagnosed with psychosis, and you may be experiencing some psychotic uh, experiences, but then you say, but I am not like that. I am not attacking no one. I am attacking no one. I am not shooting. I am not a danger to society. So maybe I don't have psychosis. Maybe I have another thing. Maybe I'm faking this experience. Maybe I received this diagnosis because uh, it was a mistake, but I don't really have this thing. This is like I am an imposter, right? Because the media is not your fault, but it's the media that is portraying only a small aspect of a psychopathology and exaggerating it to sell, because exaggeration and negativity sell. And then you suffer an imposter bias due to this. And this can happen with psychosis, but also with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar disorder, with everything. Also with physical pathologies as well, or sexual pathologies as well. And also, one of the biggest cause of the imposter syndrome, and at the end of the day, is your ego. Is your ego. Is the fact that we all have an ego. We have like this entity of organization in our experience that is always self-absorbed, is always too much concentrated and self-focused on itself, self-focused or concentrated on itself. And therefore, due to the fact that you have an ego, you are prompt to have imposter or to suffer the imposter syndrome, because your ego will always be analyzing if he is good enough. And the real thing is that, one, or you develop a very, very toxic narcissism in the fact that you are saying, I will never be a failure. I will never fail. I always succeed. And you have this big kind of irrational narcissistic confidence that sometimes is good, but if you really think that you never will fail, like, and yes, I know that you can change the definition of failure, but if you never think that you will do something bad at first, if you are delusional about this, man, you will have so many problems. But what is the whole opposite? The whole opposite is the imposter syndrome. To think then that you are not worth it, to think that you have the skills, but they are not enough. So, what we are looking in this podcast, in this episode, is to find a balance, not to become very narcissistic, self delusional, self absorbed, unrealistic in your own skills, but also not falling in the trap of the imposter syndrome. What we are looking here is a harmony and a balance of these two forces. And I will explain how you may achieve that real soon in this episode. So, who suffers from this? Who is the victim? Well, almost everyone, probably you, has suffered about this. Maybe in one stage of your life or in one task when you wanted to become, for example, a writer, maybe you suffered, or when you wanted to learn Bitcoin and become an investor, maybe you suffered the imposter syndrome there, or maybe when you wanted to start your own podcast about the fun side of mathematics. Then when you was planning that, you felt, "Ah, man, I may be an imposter. I know a little bit of mathematics, but what I do know about podcasting, who I am to do a podcast, stuff like that, right? Or this may be a thing that is you are drawing with you for your whole life. You are carrying that with you for your whole life. So this doesn't have a specific demographic for people that will suffer. Yes, I already mentioned that women tend to suffer more and minorities, but white people and rich people and successful people and men, they suffered as well. This is not something exclusive for a certain class. And also, not only the individuals suffer this, but also the world suffer the fact that sometimes you don't do the thing due to the imposter syndrome, and this have a cost of the privilege that you will that you may create in life, but you didn't do it. For example, think about if I when I was planning this podcast 3 years ago, think about if I said one day, you know what, I am feeling these sentiments of the imposter syndrome. I don't feel that I know everything about the podcast. I feel that I know a little bit about personal development, but not too much. And some people will find out and they will notice that I am not that good. And you know what? I will not do it. I will not create this podcast. I am not ready and I will forget about it. I will do it later, maybe, if I find the confidence. Imagine if that was the case. These 503 episodes will not exist. And some of these 503 episodes has helped so many people in the Hispanic community mostly because they are most in Spanish. But now we are moving into a more worldwide community in English. And this in the years to come, will help so many people because I, as an agent, as a human being that feels and that conquer it himself constantly, I felt the imposter syndrome. Definitely, I felt it. I felt it. But at the end of the day, I just launched the podcast because I was not giving a chance to the imposter syndrome to compromise my vision. And due to this reason that I actually launched, we have this project free, public, tangible, and people can go to YouTube, Spotify, or whatever and play this episode and can change their life. Because maybe you don't change your life when you hear an episode, but believe me, there's a lot of people that actually change their life with this type of material. These are the real personal developers, not the quasi personal developers. So if you restrict yourself of doing the thing that you should do and that you know that you should do due to the imposter syndrome, not only you will suffer, but the whole world will suffer because you will not bring to life the miraculous work that you can do. And that is pretty sad. So think about it. It's not only you, it's not only about yourself. This is about the whole humanity, the human race. Okay. So let me give you a list of symptoms just to for you to do a self-assessment and to think, yeah, I have a little bit of that, or yes, I don't have anything about that. But do this self-assessment constantly. Be self-aware of this assessment and these traits and these experiences, because these are the symptoms, these are the signals that are saying, hey, you may be experiencing a little bit of the imposter syndrome here. You may need to attack it, you may need to beat the hell out of it. so look uh look these symptoms, and these symptoms are not exclusive for this phenomenon, okay, but they are very common when you are experiencing the imposter syndrome. So let's start by saying general anxiety and social anxiety. Social anxiety is based on what people will think about you. So the anxiety comes from a social factor, right? So yeah, do you have that? I just want you to do a self-assessment. I will not explain each one of these. Another symptom that you may experience is depression. Depression, low energy. Another symptom that may be associated with the imposter syndrome is toxic procrastination. And what I mean when I mean toxic, it's toxic. Like every day you think about the thing that you need to do, and every day you decide not to do it. That is very sad. Another symptom may be low self esteem, a very poor relationship with yourself, low self efficacy. That is basically a scarce self belief that you can actually succeed in your life and that you have the necessary skills to do this, although you have them. But remember, this is not something about the external world, this is something about your self image, the narrative, the story, the psychological drama that you repeat to yourself every day. If you don't hack this story, if you don't hack this drama, you will experience the imposter syndrome forever. Another symptom may be overworking or underworking. So a lot of people that have the imposter syndrome, they tend to stress a lot because they feel that now they should overwork, because if not, people will notice. People will notice that you are not enough, right? Shut up. Shut up, you stupid imposter syndrome. Get out of here. um, I'm trying to make this fun, guys. I know that these subjects are not, I know that I don't have the most, what can I say, mainstream podcast ever. So I try to compensate overcompensate with humor sometimes, and I can do stupid stuff like spitting an imaginary imposter syndrome publicly. Yeah. So you may overwork because, hey, at the end of the day, you need to develop those skills that you think that you don't have, but that you already have. Or underworking, like, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I work or do not work because I am not capable. So why I will bother? Why to study? Why to study for that exam if at the end of the day I'm just a fake person? I don't deserve to be a musician. I don't deserve to be an architect. I'm just a fake. It was only luck that brought me here. It was only for luck that I passed the exam of qualifications for this university. But this luck, I will not have this luck in this exam in this university. So why bother studying? That is the rationale for this kind of under workers. Other syndrome may be insomnia. This may impact your sleep. Sex problems, definitely. Specifically, um, anxiety for performance or performance anxiety. So if you want more information about this, go and look in my YouTube channel, Dr. Derek Israel, 10 common problems, no, 10 sexual common problems, or 10, 10 common sexual problems, something like that, and how to solve them. That is the title, 10 common sexual problems and how to solve them. And there you will learn a lot about anxiety of performance in the sexual environment specifically. So yeah, that will be a very helpful information for your sexual mastery. And also I have a course in derekisrael.com that is called Sexual Mastery, in which I teach you everything that you need to know to become a sexual master. So check that out if you want. Also, low energy or obsession with insignificant details. I already discussed that in the perfectionism, or also an addiction. You can develop addiction to substances in order to deal with the negative effect, or the negative affect, the negative emotions, the uncomfortable sentiments and feelings that are caused by this imposter syndrome. So notice how this can impact your health with substances addiction, your sex life, your mental health, your social life, your success, your achievement, your spiritual potency. Imposter syndrome is a big deal. It's a big deal. So now we already discussed the demon, how we exorcise the demon, how we beat the hell out of the imposter syndrome. I notice that I don't say how to eliminate it, how to eliminate the imposter syndrome, or how to get rid. No, no, no. I want you to beat the hell out of it. I want you to go to war with it. A war obviously based on love and self-assess acceptance and compassion. So here are some of the solutions. Here are some of the practical recommendations for you to do in order to beat the hell out of your imposter syndrome. So do this and you may win the war. It is not guaranteed though, but you will have a chance. So let's go. I sometimes do not understand my own letter. Okay. So yeah, the first solution is to continue with your self assessment forever. So one thing is to self assess your imposter syndrome today because you are watching this episode and you are thinking about the concept, and hopefully you will do your own research after this and you will do your introspection, but that's it. You may decide something and that may help you, but that's it. But this not work like this. Remember, imposter syndrome attack a lot when you are about to do a new thing in your life. So every time that you will launch a project, this may happen. So this introspection, folk, needs to be constant. You need to be always looking for this syndrome and to solve it right away in the present moment and try to solve it forever. Although you may never achieve it, but this is the standard. So I want you to convert this into a tool of personal development. The fact that you are introspecting about this continuously. So the next solution is you need to engage in brutal self honesty. Honesty. You cannot fake yourself. You cannot lie to yourself. If you don't really have the skills, then it's not the imposter syndrome. It is that you need to develop the skills, but you need to be honest to say, hey, I don't have the skills. But you know what is not honest? To have the skills, to have the preparation, and say to yourself that you are not ready yet. That is not honest. So practice reality, practice being reality oriented, practice truth, practice transcending illusion, practice transcending Maya, the illusion in Hindu paradigms. Another solution is positive affirmations. So notice how sometimes the imposter syndrome is affirmations, but in the negative kind of framework, like I am not good enough. So you are affirming that. But instead of affirming I am good enough, you are affirming in a negative statement, or I am not ready, oh, or I am not an expert, or I am not capable. So, by constantly engaging in positive affirmations, both in your mind and also out loud, this will combat your imposter syndrome. So, affirmations like, I deserve. Look how simple is that affirmation. I deserve, I deserve, I deserve, I deserve, I deserve. I'm capable, I'm capable, I'm capable, I'm capable, I'm capable. I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. I'm perfect the way I am. I'm perfect the way I am. I'm perfect. I'm perfect. I'm perfect. But not perfect like narcissist, you know. is perfect as complete self acceptance. That is perfection, the perfection that I'm trying to communicate here. Or I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Those types of affirmations, make your own list. If you just copy my affirmations or affirmations that you look in Google, they will work. Because at the end of the day, your brain is a machine, kind of a machine, not a machine, but kind, like a pet. And sometimes with very mechanical stuff like this, like repeating words and phrases and beliefs, we can hack our mind. But will be this affirmation um, technique, it will be more impactful if you design your own. So go and do that. Design your own affirmations, do a list, memorize them, and continuously repeat them in your mind and out loud, and also write them, and that will combat your imposter syndrome. Also, meditation. This for me is one of the most important, if not the most important, because with meditation, you can purify your mind. And with meditation, you become self aware. Who the hell is very, very, very bad, in a very bad position in this situation? Not only the one that is aware of his imposter syndrome, but who is unaware of his imposter syndrome. That is the one that is very, very in a very bad position. And at least with meditation, you can become aware of the thought and emotional patterns that cultivate and serve as an infrastructure for your imposter syndrome. And then in the same meditation, you can purify that. So if you want to know more about meditation, go to derekisrael.com and enroll in my meditation course. And I will teach you there everything that you need to know to be able to meditate effectively in a way that you will be eradicating a lot of your problems, including uh, imposter syndrome, and you can become more happy, peaceful, wise, enlightened, and integrated as a human being. So if you want to be that, you need to learn to meditate. If you want to learn to meditate, you can do it by yourself, or you can do it with me and save a lot of time in your journey. It's your decision. Another one is going to a psychotherapy. I think that is very obvious, but you don't need to do this unless you are trying everything else and it's not working, right? So try meditation first, try affirmations, and if nothing works, then you can go and work with a coach or a therapist or a psychiatrist that is open to do stuff without medication. Because if it is a psychiatrist that only works with medication, a pill will not resolve your imposter syndrome. A pill may lighten, make more light, make more manageable the symptoms associated with the imposter syndrome, but a pill, a medication, will never eradicate the root of it. This must be done psychologically and actively. And not actively, because maybe you can do it through art, and through art, that is another recommendation. Do a lot of art, because with art you do what is called unconscious healing. So you heal unconsciously without being aware that you're healing. So you don't need to be aware, but you need to be active doing stuff. Another solution is what I call systematic self recognition. And that is basically recognizing that you have achieved a lot of things in your life and you don't recognize it systematically enough every day, if you need to. Every day, go to the list of the things that you already achieved. Like, for example, well, I traveled to China and I did this there. And also, I graduated from a very good college. And also, I developed this proposal in my job, and it was an approved proposal, and we did it. And also, I have led non-profit non-profit organizations and with success, and I did this, I did that. Go to with your list of the things that you actually have done in your life, and if you have a lot of problems creating the list, that means that probably you have a lot of self-esteem issues, and probably you need to go to a psychotherapist. Okay, that is probably. So recognize systematically your own achievements. Also, another solution is conducting what I call healthy training. It's not underwork, it is not overwork. It's just training the exact amount of hours that you really need to develop the expertise necessary and the skills necessary to launch your project or to develop the stuff that you're trying to do, or just to navigate the terrain that you are thinking that you are a fraud and that you are not able to do. So make sure that you are putting the hours, because those hours will give you confidence. If I haven't put the hours to study psychology as deeply as I have done, and to study this syndrome, well, I will be talking about this without too much confidence. And you will notice that, because I will be like thinking too much, right? So the fact that I have put the hours, maybe I'm not like super extra expert in this subject, because maybe I haven't done a research or like a official research with a university or something like that. I haven't done that. But I have put the necessary work to be able to understand the phenomena, to explore it in my life, to find some solutions and to share it with you. But I have put it the work. Okay? So put the work. Another solution is constantly do identity reaffirmation. Reaffirm who you are, my friend. And if you don't know who you are, well, then you have a lot of self exploration to do. And this imposter syndrome may be just a symptom of a more rooted problem in your identity. Is that something bad? Well, it depends, because you know, as more broken you are, the more potential for healing you have. Have you ever thought about that? About that? So the more broken you are, the more fixed you can be later. That's it. That's a good thing. So you need to reaffirm who you are. Who you are. Ask yourself that question. In the ultimate analysis, what you represent, who you are, and work with those things, and you may beat the hell out of your imposter syndrome. So for that, I recommend you my course on life purpose. It will be translated to English in the following weeks. Go to derekisrael.com and go there, check the life purpose course, because that course is all about understanding who you are, discovering who you are, and what you are here for. Life purpose, your life purpose. So another solution is what I call shadow work, to accept error. And this is basically to accept your darkness, accept your imperfections, working with this. We call this shadow work. In my meditation course, I have a whole episode about this. So, yes, you need to work with the shadow, and you need to accept that you are not perfect. And finally, you need to work with self love and self compassion. I think that that is obvious, but reading a couple of books about compassion, self compassion, that will be life transforming. Or using self compassion every time that the imposter syndrome appears in your consciousness, you just connect with gratitude and self compassion, and that is the whole antidote. Believe me, practice this for now on. Every time that you feel sad, that you feel down, off, depressed, practice gratitude, filling your heart with gratitude through breathing, through visualization, through journalism, through meditation, through mantras, through looking for subliminal, listening to subliminal audios, whatever technique you use. And this whole podcast, the whole show is about different techniques that you can use. So you can research in my podcast so for different techniques. And I guarantee that with self love and self compassion, you can heal a lot of the imposter syndrome. I have done it. I think that is very important for me to continue with my self compassion because at the end of the day, this is what keeps me safe of this phenomenon. All right. So, my friend, we have reached, um, wow, we have reached whew, the final part of this episode. I just want to mention I also have a self love masterclass in derekisrael.com, and I don't want to be perceived as I want to sell you everything that I have in store. Obviously, I want to do business with you. I'm a businessman, and this at the end of the day is a business. But I have been pretty specific in the course that I create. And I created courses that I knew they were so fundamental that they will help a lot of different type of problems. They will resolve different problems. And so that's why I made the life purpose course, meditation, self-love, how to create your content, and sexual mastery. That is the five that I have for now. I will be doing more in the future. I will be doing one of how to be a learning machine, hyper productivity, one of for optimizing your mental health, one for having a strong romantic relationship with your partner, one for becoming a lethal seller, one to become a ridiculous marketer. I will be doing more in the years to come. I have a big vision with my education platform. But the ones that I have now are so fundamental to what we are discussing. So that's why I can recommend to you. So if you are very interested in self-compassion and self-love, you should go with my self-love masterclass. If you're more interested in knowing who you are and your life purpose, you need to go with the life purpose course. If you are more interested in know how to meditate and you do your shadow work and your yoga and your kind of spiritual work to eradicate and beat the hell out of your imposter syndrome, then you will go with the meditation course. If you are more interested in how this can affect your sexuality and your sexual behavior and performance, then you will go with the sexual mastery course. So it depend your problem, your priorities, and how serious you are with your own growth. Some of you will not endorse, some of you will not enroll in the course, and that's okay. But some of you will think about it and will take a decision that will change your life forever for the good. So I hope that you are one of those. So I want to remind you that this podcast is on Patreon, and you can support this free podcast with only $5 per month. So cheaper than a coffee. You can receive exclusive content to Patreon from this artist, Dr. Derek Israel, and at the same time, you can support this podcast. So if you are enjoying what we are sharing for free and you want to reciprocate the love, go to Patreon and select a plan, and we will be very grateful with you to supporting us for supporting us. Also, I want to invite you to express yourself in the comments if you are brave enough, and express what you have been feeling, in what area, in which area you have been feeling this imposter syndrome, and how you plan to solve it or to beat the hell out of it. Remember that when you comment, you make yourself vulnerable, and that is pretty good for your healing. And you can share your story with us, and I will be responding always and reading you. So leave a comment, share this episode in your social media, send it to a friend that you think that he may be suffering from this syndrome, share it with your family. This may be life transforming for those who appreciate this work. Not everyone will do it, but maybe some will do. So be responsible, share it with your friends. And finally, I just want to thank you for being here, for supporting this podcast. Um, we are striving now to become the most innovative podcast out there. So that is now like a new ambition that I am developing, and I am realizing plans to actually achieve that. I am not letting my imposter syndrome kick in this development, and I am just gonna beat the hell out of my imposter syndrome. I want you to do the same, and I want both of us to change the world, because the world need it. The world need our fruit. Okay. So I see you in derekisrael.com, and see you in the next